crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I am here with another 6x6 one-sheet wonder. This is my 19th one-sheet wonder, so if you are looking for other ideas of how to use pattern paper, whether it be 6x6 or 12x12, you can check out the whole one-sheet wonder playlist on my channel, because you can cut down your 12x12 sheets and then use these same 6x6 templates. For today's card, I'm trying to mix it up a little bit and use a different shape. When I first started making my 6x6 one-sheet wonders, I was using a lot of squares and rectangles because that's what's easy to do with creating no scraps. And that's my big key with my one-sheet wonders, is that there's no paper scraps. So all of these are tutorials where you can really use your paper in the sense of use it up. And I know some people are wanting to use up their collection, and other people, they're buying new paper to do these things. But I want to allow you to not feel like you have to have all these little scraps left over every time you make a card, because that always drove me nuts as a card maker. So today I'm going to be creating a banner. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the measurements, but you don't have to pay close attention to that because this template is available on my blog, and it gives you a note of exactly where to put all your little measurements so that you can, if you want, copy it exactly. Or if you want, you can also just eyeball it. So I cut my paper to 3x6, and then I measured 4.5 inches from the top on both sides and made a mark. Then I'm going to mark the center of the paper and measure 2.5 inches up from the bottom. So I have a mark 4.5 inches from the top on each side, and then in the center, it's 2.5 inches from the bottom. And I'm going to connect those 3 marks to create this banner shape. Now, I know there are banner dies out there. Sunny Studio makes some that I like, but I just wanted to show you how you could do it with the minimal amount of supplies, and that means using a pencil and a ruler here. I would suggest marking on the back of your piece of paper so that you don't have to worry about erasing the line. So whatever side you don't intend to use that side, or if you have a blank side. Now, once I cut one of these, I can then cut the rest of the pattern paper without having to do all that measurement. So my suggestion would be is if you think you want to create more than like one set of these, if you're going to do this more than once, which I tend to do, I use my one-sheet wonders multiple times, and I know a lot of people like to download them and use them multiple times. So if you're going to use up like 10 pieces of pattern paper, my suggestion is to use a bit of cardstock and create yourself a template of this banner shape and do what I'm doing here. So I'm taking the one piece of pattern paper that I measured, and then I'm holding it up to the other pattern papers, the other 3x6s that I created, so that I don't have to do all that measuring over and over again. But maybe just take a piece of cardstock, cut it out one time, then take that piece of cardstock and keep it with your template, because you can print all my templates. They're PDFs. And I like to put them in a binder, like with the binder sheets, so that I can, use them over and over again. And I would just take that cardstock template and stick it in the same binder sheet, or staple it on, or paper clip it. You don't want to staple it because you have to pull it off. But anyway, just a little suggestion for people who want to make many of the same design. Now, what I'm going to do is I took an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock, and I cut it so it's 3.25 by 8.5. And I'm going to take each of my pieces and I'm going to put them on opposite sides of it. And then for my measuring, I'm just going to eyeball it. You could do measuring again. You want it to be 1/4 inch bigger on each side so that you have like a 1/4 inch border around all the sides. And I believe in the template, suggest some measurements for that. But if I'm being honest, my instinct is to tend to eyeball it anyway. Again, creating templates would be super helpful if you want to make multiples. That scrap of cardstock that was left between the two of them is not going to go to waste, because I used it to cut out my sentiment. I cut out the sweet sentiment 3 times from the teal cardstock. I wanted to pull the teal into the design a bit more, and I wanted a more substantial sentiment. I'm going to be using the Fawn Unicorn Picnic stamp set, and I'm going to have a Sweet Day sentiment. The Lawn Fawn set has some other options for what you might want to put there. And I did want to keep lifting up my MISTI here, and that's because I'm just trying to make sure my words are straight. I think a stamping tool, and there's a couple different options, but I think it's very helpful for when you're making multiple. So in this instance, I'm making 4 cards. So if I line up the sentiments one time, I can just keep sort of switching them out. However, you could just use a block as well, and it's not I'm not doing any sort of special fancy technique with this. I used my ink swatches to try to find a purple ink that I thought matched well with the purple pattern paper that I was going to use, because I'm going to take this pink piece and layer it with the purple piece. I'm kind of like mixing them up. You could, of course, do this with single-sided 6x6 paper. You don't need 2 sheets. You don't need to do any of that. But I like to create multiple cards at one time, and I like to mix up the pattern paper a bit. So after I have my sentiment, I'm going to stamp it down, and I'm going to adhere this small banner piece on top. Because it overhangs the bigger banner, I'm just putting a little bit of cardstock along that edge so that everything lays a bit more flat and it's not sort of bumping down to the card base. Hope that makes sense. I've used it a few times in videos, but it's a really simple way to give it just a little bit more of a cleaner finishing to your layers of cardstock. I'm going to share how I color one unicorn, but I'm going to color a bunch of unicorns and a bunch of the different desserts to add to my cards. I'm going to use the same colors throughout. I'm using N3, N1, and N0 for the unicorn. I want it to mostly read as white, maybe a bit silvery, and that's why I went with the Ns. But you could pick whatever set of grays you like best or whatever. I mean, unicorns can be any color. That's what's so fun about them. But for me, I wanted to keep my color palette kind of tight, which is why, again, I tried to match my ink to my color palette. So I'm going to do just the purple, pink, and turquoise. So I wanted to make my unicorn white, and then you see the hair of all the unicorns has 3 stripes and the horn has 3 stripes. So to me, that was perfect for just, keeping that color palette. To color the unicorn, I'm just going to think about really simple shadows, basically drop shadows. The mane would cast a shadow onto the unicorn, so underneath the hair is where you're going to see the sort of very slight shadows of the gray, or like that back leg is going to have a shadow on it because it's behind the front leg, or the chin. So you'll see like the chin line sort of overlaps the chest area. I'm going to put a little shadow in there. So things that are really simple like that, like where would, if you shined a light on something, like where would something block the light that you're shining? And that kind of tells you where to put a drop shadow. Then for the hair, I also wanted to keep it simple and add some dimension, so I just decided to put the shadows at the edges, so because the hair kind of dips down in the center, and so I'm letting that be lighter. You could do it the opposite way as well. I just thought this was kind of the easier way, and you could add flicks of actual like more hair texture, but I thought with these really simple stamps it just wasn't necessary. And I don't know that it would add much to it, because in fact, I think it would take away from the cartoon look of the stamps. All the Copic colors will be listed in the video description. I do try to use, like if I'm going to color teal, I try to use the same set of teals, even though Copic markers, there are many teal, there are many BG markers out there, there are many R's out there. I tend to try to keep my color palettes the same video to video, just because I know not everyone wants to have an extensive collection of Copics. I cut them out with my ScanNCut. You could get coordinating dies, of course. I want to create a little scene around the sentiment, or not really scene, like vignette grouping. I took my unicorn and I nestled it into the sentiment at the top. It just seemed like it was just perfect for that area. So then I'm going to take my other little elements and think about how I could lay them out in a visually appealing way. Here I'm going to stack the cake on sort of like overlapping with the banner and the ice cream. So I'm going to add a little bit of cardstock behind it in lieu of foam tape. You could use foam tape wherever I'm using these layers of cardstock behind things. However, your cardstock scraps are cheap and free and, right there in your craft room. So I suggest layering them up. I want to create a visual triangle. That's one thing that's always a quick way to make things appealing is to make sure that all your elements connect in a triangle. And so that's what I've done around my sentiment, and that is it for my card today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you are interested in more crafting tutorials, including one-sheet wonders, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I will leave you links in the video description below so that you can head to the blog or check out the products that I used. Thank you so much for watching, and have an awesome day. Bye.